The most devastating terror attacks in U.S. Full list and shocking facts. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Shamsud-Din Jabbar. A city built for celebration met a night it could never forget. As fireworks faded, one man's allegiance to terror lit a path of irreversible bloodshed. On January 1, 2025, Shamsud-Din Jabbar, a 42-year-old Army veteran, transformed a rented Ford F-150 Lightning into a weapon of mass murder. Just after 3:00 a.m., he breached barricades along Bourbon Street and sped down the crowded French Quarter, targeting unsuspecting New Year's revelers. In just seconds, 14 people were dead, locals, tourists, and even a British national, all victims of blunt force trauma. But the horror didn't stop at the vehicle. Investigators found Jabbar had planted 2 improvised explosive devices hours earlier. Each was packed with nails, screws, and military-grade RDX, capable of inflicting mass casualties. He uploaded 5 Facebook videos pledging allegiance to ISIS, declaring his act a strike in a war between believers and disbelievers. Moments later, he opened fire on police with a semi-automatic rifle while wearing body armor. 2 officers were injured. Jabbar was killed at 3:17 a.m. after being shot 4 times in the torso. At a nearby rental home, firefighters responded to a suspicious blaze just before dawn. Accelerants indicated arson, an apparent effort to destroy evidence. The FBI labeled the act domestic terrorism. Jabbar acted alone, but his radicalization raised urgent alarms. His SoundCloud posts from 2024 condemned music, alcohol, and marijuana, calling them tools of Satan. According to the FBI, he had scouted Bourbon Street in the months prior using Meta smart glasses, preparing for what he called his celebration. The aftermath shocked the nation. President Biden and President-elect Trump both issued public statements of condemnation. Moments of silence were held at major events, including the postponed Sugar Bowl and Rose Parade. Pope Francis offered condolences. The city of New Orleans faced criticism over dormant security protocols. The Archer vehicle barriers, bought in 2017, had not been deployed. Messages scrawled on concrete blocks, "Use me, do not hide me," spoke to the public's anger. Community response was overwhelming. The Saints and Pelicans donated $1 million, 0 cents, to victims' families. A family assistance center was open to support those grieving and to help recover belongings left in chaos. Zion Parsons, a friend of one of the victims, recalled, "There were bodies all down the street, people screaming, trying to help. I can still hear it." Such attacks demand more than mourning. They require attention to warning signs and proactive defense. Radical ideology rarely explodes without a fuse. Track the language, watch the changes, intervene before devotion becomes destruction. Complacency in public security can turn routine into ruin. Visible barriers save lives. Extremism often hides in silence, not shouting. Never underestimate the lone actor preparing in plain sight. This wasn't just a terror attack, it was a failure of foresight, a blueprint of modern threats we can no longer afford to ignore. When celebration turns to carnage, it's not just joy that dies, it's trust in the spaces we once believed were safe. Before we continue, if this case shakes you, press hype, stand with us, break silence, and let justice roar louder than the voices once erased. Number 2. Mauricio Garcia. It started like any other Saturday. Warm sunlight, crowded outlets, and families enjoying a spring weekend, but in less than 5 minutes, joy turned to horror. At 3:35 p.m. on May 6, 2023, Mauricio Garcia, 33, pulled into the Allen Premium Outlets in Texas. Wearing black tactical gear and a patch reading RWDS, short for Right Wing Death Squad, he exited a gray sedan and opened fire with an AR-15 style rifle. Within seconds, chaos erupted as bullets tore through shoppers. 8 people were killed, including a 3-year-old boy, 2 young sisters, and a 20-year-old security guard who died trying to shield others. 7 more were wounded. Garcia's rampage was halted by an off-duty Allen police officer, who responded within 2 minutes. The officer engaged Garcia near the H&M entrance. Less than 5 minutes after the first shot, Garcia was fatally struck in the head. His tactical vest was filled with ammunition. His car contained more firearms and disturbing writings. As investigators combed through his digital footprint, a chilling pattern emerged. Garcia, of Hispanic descent, identified with neo-Nazi ideologies. He expressed admiration for mass shooters, hatred toward women, and support for the replacement theory. On a Russian social media platform, he posted images of Nazi tattoos and incel memes and scheduled a video to publish after the massacre. "If I can't have love, I'll take power," read one caption. Garcia had methodically planned the attack. He had scoped out the mall over several months, researching its busiest hours and documenting surveillance photos. He legally acquired 8 firearms despite being discharged from the army in 2008 for possible mental health issues, including adjustment disorder. He wrote that no psychologist could fix him and described women as sandwich makers and baby factories. The FBI and Texas Rangers classified the incident as a domestic terror act. President Biden called the shooting another stain of senseless violence, renewing calls for assault weapons bans and stricter background checks. State officials were divided. Some emphasized mental health over gun control. Others demanded accountability for loopholes that allowed a known extremist to legally arm himself. The victims' stories magnified the loss. A Korean-American family was shattered, their 6-year-old son left orphaned. 2 Latina sisters were murdered beside their wounded mother. A 26-year-old Indian engineer was shopping for her birthday. One witness recalled, "There was a child screaming, covered in blood. His mother had shielded him with her body." This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a manifesto turned reality. Garcia's violence was extreme, but his warning signs were public, posted, and ignored. So what must we learn? Extremist content online isn't harmless. Unchecked ideology can trigger real-world horror. Mental health dismissals cost lives. Systems must flag instability early. And loopholes in gun laws leave the door wide open. Reform can't wait for another massacre. Beneath the armor and hate was a man society saw, heard, and missed. He didn't hide. He announced his plan. And still, no one stopped him. When silence meets warning signs, tragedy stops being unthinkable. It becomes inevitable. Number 3. Omar Mateen. It was supposed to be a night of music and dancing, but by dawn, Pulse nightclub had become a crime scene soaked in silence, fear, and 49 lifeless bodies. On June 12, 2016, Omar Mateen arrived at Pulse in Orlando, Florida, shortly after 2:00 a.m. He had visited the gay nightclub before, sometimes alone, sometimes drinking heavily. But this time, he came with a Sig Sauer MCX rifle, a Glock 17 pistol, and a chilling mission. Within minutes, he began firing into the crowd, targeting strangers with calculated brutality. Autopsies later revealed over 200 gunshot wounds. A third of the victims were shot in the head. Mateen paused only to reload. As clubgoers scrambled for cover, others texted goodbyes to loved ones. "I'm gonna die," one victim wrote to his mother. Another Facebook post from inside the club read simply, "Everyone get out of Pulse and keep running." By 2:22 a.m., Mateen had barricaded himself in a restroom, holding terrified hostages. He called 911 and pledged allegiance to ISIS. He then phoned a local news station declaring, "I did it for ISIS. They need to stop bombing Syria and Iraq." But investigators found no ties to terror groups. FBI Director James Comey later called his motives conflicted and confusing, noting that Mateen had also claimed loyalty to Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda, groups that oppose ISIS. At 5:02 a.m., after failed negotiations, Orlando SWAT used an armored vehicle to breach the club. Flashbangs exploded. Police fired over 150 rounds. At 5:17 a.m., Mateen was killed in a final shootout. His background offered disturbing clues. A former co-worker said Mateen had boasted of being connected to Al-Qaeda and would talk about killing people all the time. His ex-wife described him as abusive and mentally unstable, saying, "He would come home and beat me up for no reason." Mateen legally purchased his firearms just days before the attack. Despite being previously on a terror watch list, he passed background checks with ease. He had worked as a licensed security guard for G4S and even applied to become a state trooper. His behavior had raised red flags, yet no agency intervened. The aftermath was overwhelming. President Obama called it the most deadly shooting in American history. Thousands gathered for vigils. The Eiffel Tower and other landmarks lit up in rainbow colors. the One Pulse Foundation was established, and the U.S. faced urgent questions about gun control, mental health, and anti-LGBTQ violence. Dr. Joshua Corsa, who treated victims that night, later wrote, "Their blood is on my shoes, in my scrubs, and under my nails, and it will never wash away." This case leaves behind hard truths. Legally armed doesn't mean mentally stable. Red flags ignored can become tombstone. Hate doesn't always wear a uniform, but it always finds a weapon. When silence fell inside Pulse, it echoed across the world, not just as a massacre, but as a mirror reflecting what we refuse to see. Number 4. Ahmad al-Aliwi Alissa. It wasn't the echo of gunfire that changed Boulder forever. It was how ordinary life shattered in an instant under a blue spring sky. On March 22, 2021, 21-year-old Ahmad al-Aliwi Alissa pulled into the parking lot of King Soopers, a supermarket nestled in a quiet Colorado community. Wearing a tactical vest and wielding a Ruger AR-556 pistol and a 9mm handgun, he opened fire without warning. The first victim, a repairman in his van, never saw him coming. Within moments, 9 more lives were taken: shoppers, employees, and Boulder police officer Eric Talley, a father of 7 and the first to confront the shooter. Witnesses reported chaos as shots rang out across aisles of groceries and checkout lanes. Alissa, firing 47 rounds in total, moved methodically through the store. "This is fun," he reportedly said more than once, according to first responders. By 3:22 p.m., the siege ended. He surrendered after being wounded by officers, stripped of weapons and defiance, saying only, "I surrender, I'm naked." Investigators found the attack was no impulsive outburst. In the days prior, Alissa researched public places to attack, stockpiled high-capacity magazines, and scoped multiple Boulder locations. Though his lawyers entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming he was plagued by killing voices, prosecutors argued otherwise. Surveillance footage, weapon purchases, and tactical preparation told a calculated story. His family disclosed a troubled history. Alissa was paranoid, believed people were hacking his phone, and once claimed classmates targeted him for being Muslim. Diagnosed with schizophrenia after the attack, his father once believed he was possessed by a jinn, yet no treatment was ever pursued. In September 2024, after a 2-week trial, a jury rejected the insanity defense. Alissa was found legally sane at the time of the shooting and guilty of 10 counts of first-degree murder, 38 counts of attempted murder, and multiple weapon violations. The judge handed down 10 life sentences without the possibility of parole and an additional 1,334 years, ensuring he would never again walk free. Inside the courtroom, grief was unrelenting. Families of victims shared memories of birthdays missed, laughter silenced, and children orphaned. "He gave us a life sentence. Why should he get any less?" asked Olivia McKenzie, daughter of Lynn Murray. The gunman sat expressionless, unflinching. Public reaction extended beyond mourning. Vigils were held, murals were painted. The store reopened a year later, transformed. Politicians called for bans on AR-style pistols and high-capacity magazines. President Biden issued an executive order addressing the firearm loophole exploited in the attack. Colorado passed laws requiring gun owners to report lost weapons and strengthened red flag protocols. What can we take from this? Unchecked paranoia can become a trigger. Delays in mental health intervention create openings for disaster, and legal gaps in gun policy can arm the unstable. This wasn't just a shooting, it was a collapse of oversight, community, and silence. And once the bullets fly, it's not laws we rewrite first, it's lives. Number 5. Stephen Carrillo. Thumb acts are so precise, so timed, they feel less like chaos and more like execution. That's what happened when Stephen Carrillo stepped out from the shadows of uniform. In late May 2020, while America burned with outrage over George Floyd's death, Carrillo, a 32-year-old Air Force sergeant, was plotting violence of a different kind. Using the protests as cover, he and accomplice Robert Justice Jr. drove a white van to Oakland's federal courthouse. Carrillo slid open the door and, with a homemade Ghost AR-15 style rifle, opened fire on 2 security officers. David Patrick Underwood was killed instantly. His partner was severely wounded. The crime wasn't impulsive. Weeks earlier, Carrillo had posted on Facebook, Go to the riots and support our own cause, show them the real targets. He aligned himself with the Boogaloo movement, a loosely organized anti-government extremist group seeking to spark a second civil war. His target wasn't random, it was the state. Just 9 days later, on June 6, Carrillo's plans turned even bloodier. Deputies responded to his home in Ben Lomond, California, after reports of firearms and bomb-making materials. Carrillo ambushed them with an AR-15 and homemade explosives. Santa Cruz Sheriff Sergeant Damon Gutzwiller was killed. 2 other officers were severely injured, one shot, another run over. Fleeing, Carrillo hijacked a car and scrawled Boogaloo slogans in his own blood across its hood. Investigators uncovered a disturbing web. Carrillo had trained with a militia, purchased illegal firearm components, and exchanged encrypted messages with extremists. The FBI confirmed the attacks were calculated and deliberate. They came to Oakland to kill cops, one official said bluntly. Carrillo was arrested after being subdued by civilians. His court appearances drew national attention. In June 2022, he pleaded guilty to federal charges of murder and attempted murder, receiving 41 years. 2 months later, he was sentenced to life without parole for Sergeant Gutzwiller's murder in state court. The courtroom noted his lack of remorse. He stood silent as families wept. His accomplice, Justice Jr., claimed he was a reluctant passenger. A jury disagreed, convicting him of aiding and abetting murder. In 2024, he too was sentenced to life in prison. The impact of Carrillo's actions rippled beyond the courtroom. His military background raised alarms about radicalization within armed forces. His social media trail triggered debates about platforms harboring domestic terrorists. Underwood's family sued Meta, alleging it connected Carrillo with extremists. One Oakland official denounced attempts to link the killing to peaceful protesters. This was an act of white supremacist violence. What Carrillo exposed wasn't just an ideology, it was a fracture in the systems meant to protect us. From that fracture, 3 urgent warnings emerge. Radicals wear uniforms too. Trust must be earned, not assumed. Even protests can be prey. Stay alert, not just present. Extremism spreads in silence. Reports early, intervenes faster. Even Carrillo didn't just murder people, he corrupted a national moment, weaponized distrust, and declared war on democracy. In silence, he proved the most dangerous insurgents don't always scream. Number 6. Mohammed Saeed Alshamrani. One morning, a familiar classroom became the site of betrayal. The silence before the first shot didn't warn anyone. It concealed the intent of a man trusted with a uniform. On December 6, 2019, at Naval Air Station Pensacola in Florida, 21-year-old Saudi Royal Air Force trainee Mohammed Saeed Alshamrani entered a classroom with a legally purchased Glock 9M handgun and 180 rounds of ammunition. In the next 15 minutes, he opened fire on fellow military personnel, killing 3 U.S. Navy sailors, Joshua Caleb Watson, 23, Mohammed Semeh Haitham, 19, and Cameron Scott Walters, 21. 8 more were wounded. Despite being shot multiple times, Watson managed to alert security, helping responders locate the shooter. Alshamrani was killed by Escambia County deputies and base security officers at 6:58 a.m., ending the attack minutes after it began. Yet the aftermath exposed a plot deeper than a lone act of violence. Investigators soon declared the shooting an act of terrorism. FBI Director Christopher Wray confirmed Alshamrani had been radicalized since 2015, expressing anti-USC and anti-Israel views online and quoting jihadist leaders like Osama bin Laden. But months before the attack, he visited the 9/11 memorial and posted, "The countdown has started." Digital evidence recovered from his iPhones, unlocked only after a high-profile standoff between the FBI and Apple, revealed pocket cam video scouting the classroom, a final will, and messages exchanged with Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQP. The night before the shooting, Alshamrani was still coordinating tactics with AQAP. That group later claimed credit, stating their leadership had directly ordered the attack. He had even hosted a dinner party days before, where he and other Saudi trainees watched videos of mass shootings in the U.S. The investigation forced immediate changes. The Pentagon halted flight training for all Saudi personnel and expelled 21 cadets after uncovering extremist or inappropriate content. U.S. lawmakers demanded stricter screening of foreign military students, and the case reignited national debate about tech company cooperation with law enforcement. Attorney General William Barr called the inability to initially access Alshamrani's phones unacceptable, urging Congress to compel tech companies like Apple to assist in future cases. The victims' families and fellow sailors responded with heartbreak and dignity. The U.S. Navy commended the sailors for exceptional heroism in the face of evil. Joshua Caleb Watson's family said he died a hero, and that his sacrifice saved lives that day. This wasn't simply a failure in background checks, it was a coordinated breach of military trust. From that breach, 3 hard truths emerge. Radical ideology can wear any uniform, credentials are not character. Ignoring online extremism grants time for plans to sharpen. Delays in digital access risk lives. Legal tools must meet modern threats. Pensacola was not just a base, it was a target from within. And when that kind of intent hides in plain sight, prevention must begin before the first shot, not after. Number 7. John Earnest. She didn't expect to die shielding her rabbi. In a sanctuary built for peace, hate crept in, armed and calculated, disguised as just another visitor. On April 27, 2019, during the final day of Passover, 19-year-old John Timothy Earnest entered the Chabad of Poway Synagogue in California. Wearing a tactical vest and carrying a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 rifle, he opened fire into a gathering of worshippers. Lori Gilbert K., 60, was shot twice as she stood to pray. Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein was struck and lost his right index finger. Noya Dahan, an 8-year-old girl, suffered shrapnel wounds. Her uncle, Al Magperetz, was shot while trying to protect others. Earnest's rifle jammed after 10 rounds, prosecutors later said. It was the only reason the massacre didn't become a bloodbath. He fled the scene and called 911 on himself. I just shot up a synagogue because Jewish people are destroying the white race. Within minutes, police apprehended him 2 miles away. Inside his car were 5 loaded magazines and a tactical helmet. This wasn't Earnest's first attempt at terrorism. A month prior, on March 24, he set fire to the Dar-ul Arakam Mosque in Escondido. 7 people were inside at the time. The fire was extinguished, but the mosque's walls bore graffiti referencing the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque massacre. Earnest later admitted to the arson, citing deep hatred toward Muslims. His digital trail revealed an elaborate manifesto posted to 8chan. It cited white supremacist ideology, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and admiration for mass shooters. Earnest purchased the rifle legally just a day before the synagogue attack. He tried to live stream the massacre using a helmet camera, which ultimately malfunctioned. In state court, Earnest pleaded guilty to murder, 3 counts of attempted murder and arson of a place of worship. The murder charge carried a hate crime special circumstance. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 137 years. In federal court, he faced 113 charges under hate crime and civil rights statutes. On December 28, 2021, he was sentenced to a second life term to run consecutively with the state sentence. Inside the courtroom, the emotional weight was overwhelming. Lori's daughter, Hannah, said, "Your bullets will not wreck through my body today as they did my mother's. She is alive within my words." Her husband called Earnest evil. 8-year-old Noya Dahan, who had fled violence in Israel only to be attacked in California, told the court she no longer felt safe, always looking around. In response, California passed laws strengthening security grants for religious and nonprofit institutions. Lawmakers and advocacy groups reaffirmed their commitment to fighting anti-Semitism and hate-based violence. Earnest's church disavowed his actions, stating that hatred has no place in our faith. To ensure we do not become victims of the next manifesto, monitor online hate before it manifests offline. Extremism festers when red flags are ignored. Houses of worship must never assume safety by default. Justice may lock the gunman away, but only awareness can disarm the next one. When hate knocks on sanctuary doors, silence is no shield. Number 8. Robert Crimo III. On a day meant to celebrate freedom, a rooftop in Highland Park became a sniper's nest, and joy turned into screams. On July 4, 2022, as families gathered for the Independence Day parade in Illinois, 21-year-old Robert Eugene Crimo III ascended an unsecured ladder atop a downtown building. Armed with a Smith & Wesson M&P15 semi-automatic rifle, Crimo opened fire on the crowd below, discharging 83 bullets in just 40 seconds. The victims included grandparents, parents, and children. 7 people were killed instantly, including a married couple who left behind their 2-year-old son. An 8-year-old boy, Cooper Roberts, was paralyzed for life. Wearing women's clothing and makeup to disguise his identity, Crimo blended into the chaos. He fled the scene, borrowed his mother's vehicle, and drove to Wisconsin, contemplating a second attack. Instead, he discarded his phone and returned to Illinois, where he was captured more than 8 hours later without resistance. The next day, he confessed. Investigators discovered Crimo had meticulously planned the massacre. He had been surveilling the parade route for months and had documented his plans. His online presence revealed a disturbing world. Dark music videos under the name Awake the Rapper, images of rifle-wielding stick figures, and lyrics eerily hinting at mass shootings. In 2019, he had threatened to kill everyone, prompting police to confiscate 16 knives and a samurai blade. Despite this, he was still able to legally obtain firearms. Lake County State's Attorney Eric Reinhard later said he intended to end the happiness he saw around him. Crimo admitted to aiming for adults, but stated that hitting children was unavoidable due to the mesh of people. In March 2025, Crimo pleaded guilty to 69 charges, including 7 counts of first-degree murder and 48 counts of attempted murder. In April, Judge Victoria Rossetti sentenced him to 7 consecutive life terms plus 2,400 years, calling him irreparably corrupt and beyond any rehabilitation. He showed no emotion as the sentence was read. The courtroom was heavy with grief. Survivors and victims' families gave powerful testimonies. Liz Turnipseed, wounded at the scene, said, "The sentencing closes a chapter, but it doesn't heal the pain." Dr. Keely Roberts, mother of paralyzed Cooper Roberts, declared, "You and I are both serving life sentences. Yours behind bars, mine beside my broken son." The massacre spurred change. Illinois passed an assault weapons ban and expanded red flag laws. Lawsuits followed, targeting the weapons manufacturer and law enforcement oversight failures. Meanwhile, social media swirled with misinformation, from false flag theories to identity smears. From his prison cell in Stateville Correctional Center, Crimo now fades into history, but the echoes of his actions linger. The parade never resumed. The victims' families, forever changed, continue to ask how someone so clearly troubled could access such lethal power. We cannot undo the bullets, but we must heed the warnings. Silence enables monsters. Regulation matters. And if joy is what they target, resilience must be our answer. Number 9. Rizwan, Farook, Tashfeen, Malik. They left behind a baby, then launched an ambush that shocked a nation. What drove a married couple to murder 14 of their co-workers? On December 2, 2015, Saeed Rizwan Farook, 28, and his wife Tashfeen Malik, 29, carried out one of the deadliest mass shootings in California history. The location, the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino. The target, a holiday banquet hosted by Farook's own employer, the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. That morning, the couple dropped off their 6-month-old daughter with Farook's mother, lying that they had a doctor's appointment. Hours later, Farook, dressed in tactical gear, returned to the party he had just left, this time carrying a .223 caliber semi-automatic rifle. Malik followed. Together, they unleashed over 65 rounds inside and outside the venue, killing 14 and wounding at least 22. Some victims never saw it coming. They had shared cake with Farook just moments before. The couple fled in a black SUV. Over the next several hours, law enforcement traced their movements through a maze of neighborhoods, tracking evidence and preparing for confrontation. Around 3 p.m., a high-speed pursuit ended in a violent shootout. Malik fired from the back seat while Farook drove. The firefight lasted 5 minutes. Both were killed. Farook shot 26 times, Malik 15. The scene investigators uncovered was chilling. In their home, authorities found 12 pipe bombs, 4,500 rounds of ammunition, and a failed IED rigged to detonate at the conference center. They had practiced at local firing ranges for months. Farook had taken out a $28,500 0 cents loan just weeks earlier, money partly used to fund the attack. Their rifles had been illegally modified to bypass California's gun restrictions. The FBI labeled it an act of terrorism. Malik had pledged allegiance to ISIS in a Facebook message posted under an alias. FBI Director James Comey confirmed that the couple had discussed jihad and martyrdom as early as 2013. Yet there was no evidence they were part of a larger network. Self-radicalized officials concluded an online echo chamber turned deadly. Fallout was swift. Public outrage targeted gaps in visa vetting. Malik had entered the U.S. legally on a fiancé visa. Privacy debates ignited when Apple refused to unlock Farook's iPhone, sparking a national standoff with the FBI. And neighbors admitted they'd noticed suspicious behavior but feared speaking up. "We didn't want to be called racist," one later told reporter. As federal agents combed through shredded maps and encrypted files, prosecutors seized Farook's life insurance to support the victims' families. His mother, Rafier Farook, pled guilty to destroying evidence and served home confinement. This attack forced America to confront disturbing truths. Terror doesn't always come from across the ocean. It sometimes sleeps in suburbia. Mass shooters can be parents, co-workers, even neighbors. Silence, even well-intentioned, can cost lives. What appeared to be just another holiday gathering became a battlefield, and the perpetrators weren't strangers, they were invited. Number 10. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, Tamerlan Tsarnaev. A finish line meant to mark triumph became a war zone. Two brothers turned a celebration of endurance into a calculated act of terror. On April 15, 2013, thousands gathered in Boston to witness the city's iconic marathon. Among the crowd stood Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, brothers, immigrants, and soon, terrorists. At 2:49 p.m., two homemade pressure cooker bombs exploded near the finish line, 12 seconds apart. 3 people were killed instantly, including 8-year-old Martin Richard. Over 260 others were injured, many losing limbs. The bombs were packed with nails and ball bearings, intended to maim. The brothers vanished into the crowd. For 3 days, the city held its breath. Then, the FBI released surveillance images. Hours later, on April 18, the suspects surfaced again, ambushing and executing MIT police officer Sean Collier, attempting to steal his firearm. They carjacked a vehicle, plotted a second attack in New York, and triggered a citywide manhunt. In the early hours of April 19 in Watertown, police confronted the brothers. A chaotic shootout followed. Tamerlan was shot, then fatally run over by Dzhokhar during the escape. Dzhokhar fled on foot. Later that evening, he was found, bleeding in a covered boat in a suburban backyard, captured alive. At trial, Dzhokhar admitted guilt. Prosecutors played footage of him placing a backpack bomb near Martin Richard. His scrawled message in the boat, declaring the attacks as retaliation for U.S. actions in Muslim countries, became central evidence. "When you attack one Muslim, you attack all Muslims," he had written. Dzhokhar was convicted on all 30 federal charges. In June 2015, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The jury concluded he was not merely following his brother, but a willing participant in mass murder. His appearance in court was quiet, to some remorseful, to others cold. "I am sorry for the lives I have taken," he said, but many victims found the apology hollow. Legal battles followed. His death sentence was overturned in 2020, then reinstated by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2022. Appeals continue, citing alleged juror misconduct. As of August 2025, he remains on federal death row at ADX Florence, with no execution date set. Public reaction was deeply divided. Some, like the parents of young Martin Richard, opposed capital punishment, fearing endless appeals would prolong their grief. Others demanded the ultimate penalty. The phrase, "Boston Strong," emerged, symbolizing defiance and unity. But so did fear, and a renewed national debate about domestic radicalization, surveillance, and justice. 3 urgent warnings emerge from this case. Radicalization can begin at home, far from war zones. Terrorists may look like classmates, neighbors, even brothers. Justice must be swift, but never at the cost of fairness. The Boston Marathon bombing was not just an attack. It was a rupture in America's sense of safety, and in the shadows of sirens and broken bodies, it asked one question: what happens when loyalty turns to vengeance and a citizen becomes the enemy? When terror strikes, it doesn't just leave scars on buildings, it leaves questions we're still too afraid to answer. What turns a neighbor into a radical? A soldier into a saboteur? A celebration into a battlefield? These weren't foreign invaders, there were citizens, co-workers, classmates hiding in plain sight. If this episode shook you, the next may haunt you, because some of the most dangerous minds haven't struck yet, and some already sit behind bars, waiting to speak. Don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to Justice Reversed and hit the bell icon to get early access to the next real crime that rewrote American history. This isn't just a true crime, this is what justice looks like when it's too late.